Columbia has a lot to offer. Fortunately, we like to go out and eat. There's a lot of great restaurants. There's a lot of awesome parks around, and it's great just to hang out and check out a bunch of cool stores downtown and stuff.
Downtown's close to campus, so you can always meander around the streets. Down there are a lot of venues, shops. We always stop in the coffee shops.
We like to go to concerts a lot.
We go to movies a lot. We often also go to Stevens Lake Park and just hike around, and we spend time just hanging out in each other's homes and having game nights.
Student Activities Commissions brings in artists, performers, comedians.
We like to go out to the VU and go dancing and watch movies, but we also go out and party, so.
We go to college to experience new things, and experimenting with alcohol is one of those exploration kind of deals. So you have to learn what alcohol is and what it does to you, and that you're here for an education. So the experiences that you get with alcohol shouldn't be the primary focus of your time at college. And learning to say no when people around you are drinking and stepping away from that is really hard the first time you do it, but as you do it more and more, it gets easier and easier.
My personal choice is not drinking. I've never had alcohol before in my life.
Just because you go to a party doesn't mean that you have to drink. It's your choice. So I choose to drink because I think it relaxes me. So, but I have friends that don't drink just because they don't feel like it's necessary.
I think it's fine if you're just having fun, but there has to be responsibility and things that you think about before you just drink.
I would choose not to drink when I know that I have school or work or anything like that the following day, to make sure that I'm fully professional and coherent enough to function.
You never know who's watching you. And pictures on Facebook, it's just something personal I choose not to do because I'm scared about what my future employers are going to see.
Personally, I do like to indulge from time to time. I don't like to go overboard and drink excessively.
I can have more fun being sober than I can, with alcohol, and I actually want to remember what I did.
Your friends are doing it, why not you do it? There's curiosity. What does it feel like to be out of control for a little bit?
If you choose not to, you shouldn't be ridiculed by your peers for not consuming alcohol. There should be an atmosphere that supports both viewpoints with respect to alcohol. And if you are having trouble, you need to contact your professors as soon as possible and say, hey, do you know anything that can help me, or how can I improve my grades or help my grades at least stay where they are, because you don't want to fail.
The reality is college students, whether they're underage or overage, are going to be drinking alcohol quite frequently. And a lot of times they just don't know how to responsibly do it, either in terms of quantity, mixing different types of alcohol, of course, doing it in settings where they're going to be safe.
Being safe when you're drinking is, pacing yourself, knowing your limits, definitely not get in a car. And high-risk drinking is when you just binge drink and you drink so much that you don't know, the next day you're sick. Who wants to be sick and throwing up? I definitely don't.
I would say that responsible drinking is taking sips versus gulps, because you drink more, then you're going to be affected more.
High risk is like whenever you see those people, it's like, man, I'm going to get messed up tonight, That's high risk, because you know that they're intentionally wanting to not remember anything that happened, so.
I think knowing your limit is the key. Knowing how much you can drink, your body type, if you've had food or not, that's important, and then not crossing that line.
This is a 12-ounce serving of beer. This is a serving of wine, about 4 to 5 ounces, and this is a serving of hard liquor, about 1 to 1.5 ounces, and this is an actual mixed drink. This is not a mixed drink. In fact, that's about 6 shots, and it should last you about 6 hours.
I'd really like to see students plan ahead. Go with a friend, stay with a friend, and leave with a friend. I'd like them to think about what their limit is in terms of how much they're going to drink, and keep that limit within a safe range.
Who's going to be the sober driver? We talk a lot about the sober driver. It's been going on for many years. What we really need to talk about even more than that is the sober friend, especially with young women. Who is going to be the person that's going to stay sober and make sure no one is making a bad decision, strays from the group, and gets separated, and those are oftentimes when we see bad things happen.
Pretty much just looking out for people. I think it's making sure that if you see they're in a bad situation or getting sick, then you bring them some water, or if you need to, you take them home.
If they're to the point where they shouldn't drink anymore, you be the responsible person and tell them that they're not going to drink anymore. Or when it's time to go home, you make sure that the drunk people aren't driving home.
As kindergarten as it sounds, we use the buddy system because you don't ever want to walk off by yourself because you never know what can happen.
A buddy of mine actually knocked himself unconscious while trying to pee.
I was at a Halloween party one time, and all the girls decided they wanted to get up on a table and start dancing. Well, too many girls on one table caused the table to break, and yeah, they all fell.
Well, one time I was at a frat party and this girl was wearing a really short skirt without underwear. It was a pretty nasty sight.
I know people who've lost debit cards. There's like a lot of stuff in my apartment, buddies' apartments that have been destroyed.
I've actually had a friend that decided it was a good idea to flash everyone at a party. A couple pictures were taken and sent to her. And it's more the embarrassment of it. Like, you don't want to be that drunk girl that does stupid things like that.
I've seen quite a few people get DUIs.
People have told me stories of friends getting raped before.
One of my best friends, my first year at college, was getting a little rambunctious and a little violent with some other people and ended up getting thrown into a car.
You get a lot of the drunk driving and the accidents that result from that. We have alcohol poisoning. We have issues related to date rape, issues related to people becoming quite violent and aggressive when they're drunk, or getting into situations where they end up with traumatic injuries because of a fight, and a lot of that has to do with alcohol.
In the state of Missouri, your actual body can be a container for alcohol, and this applies to underage drinking. So if a law enforcement officer encounters you and they believe you're showing signs of intoxication, that's often, the slurred speech, the watery, bloodshot eyes. If we find you, laying downtown someplace on the sidewalk, that's often something we see. Those are all clues of intoxication, and we actually do not need you to blow in a breathalyzer or to be in possession of alcohol physically in your hand in order to arrest you for minor in possession. Your body can actually be that container, and we will use those clues to make our case and write that citation.
I've actually had a couple friends that have had alcohol poisoning, and I've been there. And so being put in that situation is not fun because you don't, you know what to do, but you freak out. And so it's a hard situation on both the person who has alcohol poisoning and the person that has to deal with it.
The passing out is definitely the one that we're most concerned about, because at this point the person has an inability to control their airway as well, and so they could actually vomit and actually choke on their own vomit, which can be actually a life-threatening situation.
If you see somebody with this, you gotta, no matter what, you have to call 911 and make sure that they get the help they need, or just don't leave them alone, because that can just cause serious injury.
And you don't want to leave them on their back. You actually want to roll them over into the side and do that rescue position where their head is propped up on their arm and you've got one of the legs out to kind of help keep them up on the side. That way, if they were to vomit, it's going to go away from them, not just sit in their mouth and risk them breathing it into their lungs.
Columbia College has a medical amnesty policy that states students will not be punished if they ask for help during a medical emergency resulting from alcohol. There will obviously be some follow-up to ensure that students have learned from the situation, but we are more concerned about everyone's safety.
Alcohol does not cause sexual assault, but alcohol is used by many people who commit sexual assault as a way to make it easier to assault a woman, and is also used as an excuse to assault.
Any type of consent with alcohol is not consent, so as a male you got to really be aware of that.
We often hear no means no, which is entirely true, but nothing doesn't necessarily mean yes. So no response, or someone to the point that they're incapacitated, passed out, so intoxicated they can't make that decision, is not considered consent for us.
I always like to think of consent as enthusiastic participation.
The reality is that these things cover both genders in pretty much every type of situation.
Pharmacological effects also make it difficult for people to resist or fight back when they're extremely intoxicated.
Specifically related to date rape, there's a myth that seems like that something has to be added into the alcohol. That's not true. Alcohol by itself is the #1 date rape drug. It doesn't take adding anything else in.
Basically what I do in Columbia, I go to the ARC, which is like a recreational center. You can jog, play basketball, you can swim.
My friends who didn't want to drink, we just bake cupcakes and watch movies, and it was really fun. You wouldn't think it'd be fun, but it was super fun.
I've always just hung out on Miller Lawn and just read or done homework and just hung out with friends, played Frisbee or volleyball, or just watch movies on campus, listen to music.
I like to go to sporting events, play as many sporting events as I can.
The good thing about Columbia College is we have lots of activities constantly going on. There's events like every week, so there's always something to do. You're in the dorms, you're close to your friends. There's plenty of other things to do besides drink and go to parties.
Tell you, and if I catch you hanging around, I'm gonna let